Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Morgan Kapitsky from the Alumni Engagement Team. We've been doing these webinars now. This is going to be, I believe, our fourth one, and we are super excited. But while we love talking to you guys about these topics, it's really exciting when we get to bring in some different people with a little more expertise. So I'm really excited to introduce Connor, who's going to be leading us through this presentation today.
Thanks, Morgan. Hi, everyone. My name is Connor Voss. I am on our Alumni and Donor Communications and Marketing team here with the Alumni Association. I also used to formerly work specifically with the Alumni Association and manage our social media. So I'm excited to be here with you guys to kind of walk you through everything you'll need to know to manage social media for your organization. So we'll go ahead and get started, and then please save your questions for the end or enter them in the chat, and then Morgan will help us go through the questions at the end. So getting started, before you can even post anything or start running your social media, you'll need to start a profile for your organization. And so that's kind of a loaded question because there's a lot of social media platforms out there. As you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, there's a ton to choose from. But at MAA, we really recommend that for our organizations, Facebook is typically the best option. Sorry about that. And the reason we recommend Facebook, so in terms of the audience population, Facebook has the widest user base, so the odds that your members are on Facebook are using Facebook is pretty high. Also the capabilities that Facebook has in terms of the things it can offer, like events, like sharing links and news, compared to other platforms like Instagram, where you can't share links, or Twitter that limits your characters. Facebook just has a lot of capabilities that are really nice for our organizations. So when it comes to starting your Facebook presence, you still have some more choices when you're starting that. So the two options when you're starting a Facebook presence for your organization are, as you can see on this slide, a Facebook page, or on the next slide, a Facebook group that we'll cover. So we'll run through kind of the pros and cons of each of those, the page or the group, and what might be best for your organization. So the Facebook page is probably one that everyone who uses Facebook is pretty familiar with. If you like a page, anyone who likes your page or your followers, it's what we recommend for medium or large organizations who have frequent updates. And how a page works is there's a page administrator who creates and posts operating as the page manager. So everything that comes from the page comes from the administrator. It's also the role of the administrator to respond to all the comments and answer questions. So that will be a duty of yours if you are the administrator. And on a Facebook page, it's more of a one-sided platform. So the page will put out an announcement. Users can comment and share, but users on a page can't directly go into the page and share something with all of the followers. So that is a drawback there. Which brings us to a Facebook group. This is really an option that we recommend for all sizes of organizations. So how this works, like we mentioned before, a page is more of a one-sided mechanism, whereas a group really facilitates a sense of community. Whereas on a page, only the administrator can post from the page. In a group, every member has the opportunity to go in there, share news, answer questions. You can share that responsibility of managing social media with all of your members. And how it works is you'll have to request to join to see posts and updates. But once you do that, the great thing about a group is it'll send your users or your members notifications every time someone posts in your group. So that's a great way to make sure that your group members are seeing those posts. And so if you're still unsure after we've kind of covered the differences between groups and pages, what might be best for your organization, feel free to reach out to your MAA liaison and they can help you with making that decision for your organization. So the next step in the process is once you've decided what's best for your organization, there's some logistical things to consider when you're setting up your group or page. So when it comes to groups, again, your liaison can walk you through this if you need extra help. But there's lots of settings when it comes to groups, all the way from making a group secret to where no one can search for it and you have to get an invitation to join, all the way to public where anyone can see a post without being a member. So what we recommend at the Alumni Association is making sure that your group is public and searchable, but also that you have to request to join. So this makes sure that you're not getting people who aren't actually affiliated with Mizzou in your group. This just means that you'll have to ensure that someone is monitoring the group requests to join. And when it comes to naming your group, we have some conventions that we'd love, especially the MAA chapters in particular, to follow. So you'll see if you are viewing the slide, those are either Mizzou alumni - your city name or Mizzou and then city name. And the reason we've implemented that is we've had issues in the past if there are some chapters that have really cool names that they have adopted kind of internally, but if someone is searching for that chapter without knowing that name on Facebook, they can't find it. So these naming conventions really make it easy for them to find your chapter, which we want. And then we also ask that when you're setting up either your group or page, adding an MAA staff member, so your liaison as an administrator.
Yeah, this is really important, and you can usually just lean on the liaison for your chapter organization to be this administrator. The reason we ask to do this is if for some reason ever you were to lose the password or lose the login information or the turnover in leadership and somewhere along the way we don't have access to that account anymore, we can access it, and you know that someone permanently is going to be able to store that information and have it for your chapter to continue to be able to use those social media pages.
That's right. And additionally, your liaison can help you out with finding an MAA approved profile and cover photo. We've got some really great ones that our designers have created, and this ensures that there's standard branding across all of the groups and pages, and that people know they're really seeing the official group. So once you've set up your page or your group, the next question is, what should I post? So there's a lot of things that you could post as a chapter or organization, but we have a couple questions to kind of guide your brainstorming. And these go along with especially being successful on Facebook. So as you might remember, Facebook back in the olden times, it was a chronological listing of every single post from every one of your friends. So anytime someone you followed posted something, you were going to see it. But now Facebook has gotten so crowded, and that's not the case anymore. So Facebook has an algorithm that it operates off of to decide what posts each user will want to see. So essentially, just because a page posts something doesn't mean everyone who follows them is going to see it. So if you follow these guidelines, it'll be helpful in ensuring that your posts do well in this algorithm. So the first thing we want to focus on, is it timely? So Facebook prioritizes things that are happening soon or have very recently happened. So the sooner you can post about an event that has just happened, the better it will do. And then the next question is, can you relate it back to your organization? So there's a lot of times when there's great Mizzou news to share or just things that your followers would be interested in, but Facebook is very particular about wanting to make sure that what you're sharing is relevant to your page or your group or page. So an example that we'll give is if you're sharing some Mizzou news, say Mizzou recently shared a post about congratulating the summer welcome leaders this summer who will be leading the orientation for new students. So instead of just plainly sharing that post, you could share it, but add in a little note, congratulations to the students from our area who are leading summer welcome, congratulations to our scholarship winners who are attending summer welcome, that kind of thing. So anything you can do to tie it back into your organization, Facebook will reward you for sure. And then, so those will kind of generally guide the topics that you're thinking about posting about, but here's some just general tips and best practices when you're getting into the nitty-gritty. So some things to follow: make sure that you're trying to keep your captions and the text in your post short. So that's another thing that Facebook will kind of knock you for, is if you have a post that has a lot of copy, so a really long paragraph, they will deprioritize that post. Same thing goes for using images in your posts. Facebook loves when people use photos. Again, make sure that it's timely. Facebook does reward that. Make sure it's relevant. And then again, sharing Mizzou news that's related to your organization or that you can relate back in some way. And then here's a couple examples, if you're viewing the slides, that are some organizations that have really done well in these areas. So the first example that we'll look at, Boone County Mizzou Alumni. This is an example of an event recap podcast or event recap post. And they've got a nice caption telling us about how the event was. They've got a photo, posted very timely, very well done. Mizzou Alumni in Kansas City has an example here of posting local news, but then adding in a tie to how it relates to their Mizzou audience. So here they've got an example of an article about local news broadcasters in Kansas City, and let's see, they said great coverage by Mizzou-made meteorologists and reporters in keeping Kansas City safe. So they took local news and then related it back to their Mizzou audience in Kansas City, which is very well done. And so a couple more examples. These are two posts that were made in a group, whereas the last two we just talked about were from pages. This first example is from the Memphis Mizzou Alumni group. And here's an example. They shared a news article about Mizzou students volunteering in Memphis for spring break. So it was a news article covered by local news. And they shared, great news story about the Mizzou students on alternative break in Memphis. So that's a great example because it's something that's local to their area that Mizzou's overall account might not have shared because it's so specific to Memphis, but it's really relevant to those alumni. And then our last example here is from the Bates County Mizzou Alumni Club Facebook group. And here they've got some photos and nice snappy caption congratulating their scholarship recipients. So Facebook is a great way to recognize your leadership, recognize your winners, everything like that. And so a couple things to keep in mind as well to consider and to shy away from. So don't assume that everyone who follows your page will see your post. As we've mentioned, the Facebook algorithm is pretty finicky. So if it's really important information that you're sharing in that Facebook post, make sure that you're also sharing it by call or email as well. Also avoid speaking in first person if you're posting from a Facebook page. So recognize that you're speaking on behalf of your organization. So instead of saying, I invite you to this event, say we invite you to this event. Another general rule of thumb, this won't make or break your post, but don't feel you need to use hashtags on Facebook. For Twitter and Instagram and other platforms, they're very important, but on Facebook, they don't have the same functionality. So don't sweat those. At all costs, please avoid leaking Mizzou news or information. So as volunteers, sometimes you'll have access to Mizzou news before the general public because you all are kind of insiders. But please don't share that on social media until Mizzou's social media has shared that publicly as well. We'd also, in the same vein, try to stay away from offering personal commentary about Mizzou news. So when you're using a Mizzou Alumni Association organization social media, you are speaking on behalf of the entire Alumni Association. So remember that. And along with what Facebook would like to see in their algorithm, try not to post to Facebook more than once a day. They'll start showing your post less if you post more than that. And so your profile's up and running, you're sharing some great content, and then hopefully the next thing you'll have is lots and lots of members wanting to like your posts and interact with you. So some general tips for interacting with your users. So going back to if you're on a Facebook page, so if you're the page administrator or manager, it's your responsibility to respond to anyone who comments with any questions on your posts. So try to keep up with monitoring that at least on a daily basis. And then we hope this doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. If someone posts an inappropriate comment on any of your posts, number one, it's best not to engage with that user, just to not respond to them. But what we would recommend in that situation is to hide their comment. So on the next slide, we'll show you how to do that. But it's a great tool to be able to use since it's not technically deleting the comment, but it's hiding it from most people. And then finally, if a situation with a user escalates, so if someone's posting a lot of negative comments, please contact your MAA liaison for the next steps, and then they can handle it from there.
And that's also another great reason to make sure that we have all of our access to your social media accounts. So if there ever is something like that sort of situation that we need to take care of, it's much easier for us to do so and take care of it for you.
And so on to how to hide a comment. As you'll see here, there's instructions on this slide. So on the left side, you'll see the comment section of a Facebook post, and this grayed out area that we're mousing over right now, that's what a comment looks like when it's been hidden. So what hiding a comment does is it's still visible to the person who made the comment and to that commenter's friends. And it doesn't alert the person whose comment it is that the comment has been hidden, but for everyone other than the person who made the comment and their friends, it doesn't exist under the post. So it's a great compromise there. So in terms of how to hide a comment, so you'll see on the left side, here's an example of a comment, and next to every comment there are these 3 little gray dots and on the right side, and so you'll click on those, and that should have a little drop down that comes up with an option to hide the comment, and you'll just click that. And then finally, if you come into contact with a question that someone's asked you that you don't know the answer to, feel free to just tag Mizzou Alumni in the comments, and our marketing team will respond to that user for you. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a great tool to use. So, you never have to leave a question unanswered or not interact with your user, but you also don't have to try to take a guess or try to make up something in a situation. We have people all the time that are happy to help answer any of those questions that we need to for our alums.
So that brings us to the end of the formal presentation, but if anyone has any questions, we'll take those, and I believe Morgan will help lead us through the questions.
Yeah, I've just been looking over the chat, so also this is a great time if you have questions about what we went over to go ahead and put them in the chat. We do have one about hearing before that hashtags actually do help a post. So can you go over a little bit maybe how hashtags work on different social media platforms and how they can be helpful on each of them?
Sure. So hashtags are really important on platforms like Twitter and Instagram, whereas they can really drive a conversation and people will see posts based on that. You can follow certain hashtags on Instagram and Twitter, but on Facebook, you can click on a hashtag. It's not like they're a broken link, but they don't have the same influence as they do to guide a conversation as on the other platforms, if that helps.
Yeah. On Facebook, could they maybe still have the added benefit of whenever we're trying to get people to use a homecoming hashtag or use our different hashtags that we are pushing at a time, even though they might not be that helpful to the post, it might help share it a little bit information-wise anyway to be used on other media platforms?
Yeah, they're still a great marketing and branding tool on any platform. We just don't want to pressure people like they need to learn how to use hashtags to use Facebook, because you don't. So, but feel free if you'd like to add them in there, that you can.
Yeah. Perfect. Does anyone else have any other questions? Go ahead and throw them into the chat, and we'd be happy to talk about them. It's really exciting when I feel like I know a little bit about social media, but to have someone that kind of works and does this pretty much full time, this is a huge part of your job, so you've got a lot more expertise than we do, so it's really great to have you to help our volunteers.
Sure, always happy to.
All right, well, if we are out of questions, I think we will wrap it up. Thank you everyone for coming and for phoning in. Of course, we will be oh, wait, we got a last minute question. So if the population, the age groups that are using social media are kind of moving away from Facebook, specifically a younger generation, what's the best idea to reach them if a organization has the resources to kind of move beyond Facebook?
Sure. So right now we're still in the time when most of the demographic who would be joining an alumni aged organization will be on Facebook, but that's so right. In years in the future, that won't be true anymore. So right now, most of our college graduate aged former students are on Facebook, But in the future, as you're moving toward having younger folks in that group, that's something we'll have to talk about. I mean, Instagram and Twitter are both highly used, but they do have their drawbacks in terms of functionality that we've discussed. So if you guys learn anything from your members and your students, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I would also ask if maybe there's a way, if because Instagram and Facebook are very compatible with each other, to kind of double your posts. I think there are options on each platform to share them to each other,
Yeah.
maybe or at least from Instagram to Facebook, or maybe pulling a younger audience from one of those platforms to your Facebook for the things that Facebook does better, like events and sharing photos and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right. Anybody have anything else they'd like to put into the chat before we call it a night? Okay. Well, once again, thank you guys so much for signing up and tuning in to listen to this webinar, and we will see you guys on the next one.
MIZ?